All right, we are live.
We are live. Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the Government Operations Committee. It's Monday, January 13th. It is 6:43. We have four items on the agenda tonight. We're hoping to get through this before the council meeting. Voting members of this committee would be Councillor Beck, Councillor Dean, Councillor Mallor, and I'm Sue Hawes, the chair. Also at the table, we have Councillor Fish and we have Assistant City Manager Courtney O'Donnell with us at the table as well. Oh, and yes, Kara, sorry. She's looking right at me too. And on Zoom, we have Council Chair Kara Pelletier. So, and sauntering to the table is Councillor Fournier.
Meandering.
Meandering, yes, not meandering. Are we set?
Yep.
So our first item is the public health update.
Yep, we have Public Health Director Jen Gunderman here.
Hi, good evening, everybody. This is sort of my routine update to keep you all informed of some of the things that we're doing over in the public health department. So the memo that I provided with you today are definitely some highlights, and probably maybe the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bullets I think is something that I'll include regularly on these memos. It's just more of the programmatic updates, so that you get kind of a sense of the depth and the breadth of the work that we do over at the public health department. And I'm also very welcome to suggestions on other things that you want on the memo as well, but I tried to kind of mix it up a little bit with a few other topics that we may not have discussed yet. So the first one around the Maine Continuum of Care, the Maine COC is an entity that's been in existence for a long time. Bangor Public Health and Community Services has participated in even holding a lot of leadership positions within that group. Over the past 4 months, HUD sort of came to the Maine COC and said, you really need to restructure yourself. It was a lot of cooks in the kitchen with the Maine COC. So what's happened over the past 4 months is the Maine COC has restructured itself with sort of a more traditional structure that you often see in like nonprofit organizations with the board of directors and committees and, rules of engagement around voting membership and things of that nature. So the reason why I bring it up is one, it's a change in structure for how conversations will happen in the state around homelessness and how to address it. But also to say that we participated in the interim governing committee to help set the structure for the ongoing Maine COC. So I was the representative on that with a group of about 5 or 6 other people. And so we worked really hard over a short amount of time to put together a guidance for a new governance structure and the way that the Maine COC will work. And the larger Maine COC, the members have reacted pretty positively to it. So we're happy to have been a participant in that work. I've also been a representative of municipalities with also a representative from Portland on the Harm Reduction Health Center Working Group. This was a working group that came out of LDL 1364. Gordon Smith from the governor's office helps to lead this working group, as well as Dr. Lisa Letourneau. And so this is a working group that was put together to look at it's in the legislation, it's called Harm Reduction Health Centers. It's also been called safe injection sites or safe consumption sites. So this group has come together. There's a really an amazing representation from public health, from law enforcement, from policymakers, from advocates, really sort of diving into harm reduction health centers. And what we've done as a group is to talk with other models that exist in other parts of the United States. Particularly, we spoke to a group out of New York, and then also spoke to a couple of states that are looking at potentially opening these sites. Rhode Island is very close to opening a site, and Vermont is maybe a few steps ahead of Maine, but not quite of where Rhode Island is, where they're actually about to open a harm reduction health center. We heard from sort of the legal pieces of it around federal, state, policy. We've looked at some of the research, and started to have some conversations on what a final report will look like. So the report at the end of this, which will happen in probably about February, is not to say Maine should have overdose, harm reduction health centers, but to say, here are the things that Maine should consider when thinking about harm reduction health centers. I represent Bangor. Dina Libner from Portland represents Portland, so there's some good municipality representation. Jason Hunt from Wabanaki, also here in Bangor, is also on that group. So we have about 3 more meetings, and then we'll start drafting a report that will be provided to the legislature.
Is there a recommendation?
There will be overall recommendations on if harm reduction health centers are to happen in the state of Maine. Here is the things that need to be considered. So there won't be an outright recommendation of, yes, Maine should have them, or no, Maine shouldn't have them. But really the work group was set up. As you can see, I provided the quote right there, is to really evaluate, identify the research, and to provide sort of guidance on if there was to have those harm reduction health centers in Maine, what are the considerations? Yes.
If they're, if it passed and they were recommended, how do you see it? Would it be mandated, or would the municipalities vote on their own?
That's a really great question. That's part of the conversation. You know, this is an opportunity to say, hey, this is what the guidance is. You know, I've had conversations with city manager, Lori Debbie, and really about like, what role does the municipality want to have? And we've talked about how the municipality will have to authorize or approve or vote on, and what that could potentially look like. So it will not be a hard and fast recommendation that it's mandatory, but really recommendations on what should be considered if this is going to happen in the state of Maine.
Your recommendation is going to the legislature.
Yes.
Okay,
It's a
so it's
working
gonna be up to, if they don't fund anything, then it's dead in the water. Okay.
The only sort of fiscal note that was on this LDL was to actually run the work group. Community Health Leadership Board, as you might be familiar, the Community Health Leadership Board is made up of a number of the health and public health entities in the Bangor area. This is a group of leaders that come together on a regular basis to talk about some of the pressing issues around health in Bangor. The past few months, we've spent a lot of time around the HIV cluster. All the entities, CHCS, St. Joseph's, Northern Light, Penquist Cap, PCHC, thank you, PCHC, very important one. We've all had conversations around us as organizations really needing to overextend ourselves to address this cluster. And so we've had a lot of conversations in terms of the ways that we've had to overextend ourselves. And we've just recently had a meeting with Dr. Va, the Maine CDC director, and Commissioner Gagnon to talk about what it has meant for our organizations to really go above and beyond our usual work to be able to address the needs of the cluster. We have provided requests around having guidance from the state around different strategies. We've requested on the ground presence of CDC to help with some coordination. And we have put in a financial request to CDC for that overextension of roles and tasks and activities that we've had to engage in. Right now, it's really in the hands of the DHHS commissioner's offices and Dr. Va to come back to CHLB and say, here's the ways in which we can meet some of your requests. And then an update on the syringe waste MOU. As you're familiar, HEAL had that MOU in the past. That is an MOU that's not being continued with HEAL for a number of different reasons. So we've been engaging in conversations with Wabanaki, as I've mentioned, in terms of what would a high quality syringe cleanup program look like for the city of Bangor. So we're in back and forth conversations right now around deliverables and budget. I do want to make you aware that their budget is more than what we had with HEAL, and there's good reason for that. You know, they provide a structure and capacity that is really high quality. Again, back and forth right now, this MOU is paid for by opiate settlement funds. This isn't out of the sort of city budget in other ways. So I'll again keep you up to date. I hope the next time I come before you, we have an MOU, but that's where things are at right now. So the remainder of the updates that I have are just really for you to understand a little bit more about what the department does. The public health nursing program, a couple of their highlights are their Milk and Cookies lactation group that has grown exponentially. They just recently did a focus group where some of the moms in the group are saying that the support that they get during this consultation group has made all the difference to their mental health. It's more than just breastfeeding support. It's about community for them. And we also had a really successful flu and COVID vaccine clinic. We did a number of schools, a number of municipal departments, and Jen Doyle has now gone back to some of the city departments to see if anybody continues to want some vaccine. WIC, as I think I've mentioned, is celebrating the 50th year of being in existence, and we're so happy to say in Bangor that WIC has, for those 50 years, has always been with the city of Bangor. That's a huge accomplishment. And you can see from the data that I provided here that WIC is stronger than ever. And one of the things I want to highlight is the farmers market program that I provide some information. That is money that is going to the vendors at the Bangor farmers market. There were some bumps and bruises in getting that program going, not from our side, but just from the organizational side. But things have really improved this year, and I would expect those numbers to go up next year.
Just real quick, for those that may not know, what does WIC stand
Oh,
for?
sorry, Women, Infant, and Children's Program.
Thank you.
Tobacco. So with our tobacco program, they'll be working with the Center for Tobacco Independence to provide treatment options for students at Bangor and Brewer High Schools. So right now, our department is working very closely with the school-based health center at Bangor High School for any student who is ready to say, I don't want to use tobacco products anymore or vape. They'll now have a referral process that someone can work one-on-one with them to provide that support to move someone away from using those tobacco and vaping. Substance use disorder, there's some data around naloxone that's been distributed and the development and implementation of 3 trainings for healthcare and social service providers on cannabis use during pregnancy and lactation. And then the last update they'll provide is around our healthy eating, active living. That's given the acronym of HEAL, so it's a different HEAL. This is the healthy eating, active living program. And as you can see, they've just done some really amazing things around SNAP Ed. And one of the things I think was really exciting that they did this over the past few months is to establish 3 physical activity clubs in Penobscot County, Acatawna Elementary, Abraham Lincoln, and Vine Street. Those are our big updates for today. I'm happy to take any questions or comments, or if there's anything else that you would like to see on these updates.
Do you have numbers on the students that are actually using the tobacco cessation?
I can. That is just getting started. So I'm guessing the numbers are pretty small, but let me see what we've got at least since the program started.
Thank you. Other questions, Council Forney?
Give a timeline on opioid settlement.
Yes. So as I mentioned last time we were here, our plan now is to go back to the community and have community listening sessions to understand and get some feedback. I'm having our department staff to put together what that plan will look like by the end of January. So I should be able to come back and share that in February. One of the staff members that we would like to work on this project is her she is funded by a few different grants. That grant is coming to an end in the spring, and we want to shift her into this work. She's a social worker by trade and amazing. So probably things will really start to pick up in the spring, but I should have a plan to you in February on what that will look like.
Thank you.
Love it.
I just wanted to comment on the Milk and Cookie Lactation Group. That's great that it's grown. And for those people who do want to get involved with it, is it on the website, our city website, they get information about that?
We have a Facebook page. In terms of on our website, that's actually a great question. I
Public
don't,
Health actually has their own website.
No,
So-
we do. I actually don't know if that's highlighted on there. Let me check and make sure. I know that we are, as department heads, are going to be taking a look at our website. Right now, there's some really great programmatic information on our website, but not really a lot of topic information. So we really want to kind of make that robust. So, when summer comes, we'll have mosquito-borne disease information and link to resources. So we're starting to look at what our website will look like.
Anything else?
I think her, she has the next.
On the next one too. So you're too fast.
So moving on.
So moving on. The Maine Health Access Foundation, otherwise known as MEHAF, is a funding source in the state of Maine that focuses on supporting community efforts to improve health. They have been around for a while. If I'm recalling this correctly, MEHAF's origin comes from Blue Cross Blue Shield. When they became established in the state of Maine, they needed to set up a foundation, and those foundation monies have sort of grown. Bangor Public Health has had MEHAF funds. We actually have a grant right now around MEHAF working with people who inject drugs. That grant will come to an end in May. I have been meeting with a few of our local health entities about what are some of our needs here in Bangor. And one of the things that really jumped out was really the lack of access to immediate primary care. In talking with PCHC, St. Joe's, Northern Light, the wait time to actually see a PCP in this area is about 3 to 6 months. Right? That's a long time for somebody. So we're starting to formulate some ideas on what would potentially a bridge program look like, a primary care bridge program. So somebody has their primary care appointment 3-6 months out. How can a public health nurse type of role help this person navigate healthcare until they get to that first primary care appointment, when sort of, the doors open up to them to chronic disease management or referrals for behavioral health. So what can we do in that interim time? So we're starting to think about some ideas on what a proposal would look like to submit to MEHAF to get funded to do something like that. So what I'm asking for today, the first step in MEHAF funding is a letter of interest or letter of intent. It's a sort of a one-pager that we send in with our basic idea. And then MEHAF comes back and says, hey, this looks like a proposal. This looks like a really good idea that you can actually send in a proposal. Even if we're told, hey, yeah, this looks like it could be a good idea, we don't have to submit. So if you sort of give me the thumbs up today for the letter of intent, which is due before the next meeting, we'll put in a resolve to go through the formal process.
I see a lot of nodding heads. Is anyone opposed to that?
I'd like a motion if we can, because it would be on the next council meeting.
Oh, okay.
I'll make a motion to approve a letter of intent for this purpose.
Second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded that the letter of interest for a potential bridge program.
Yes.
Be sent in. Did she leave? Is
Yep.
she no longer
She is not
in the
on the
meeting? Okay,
Correct.
so we do need to, is there any further discussion on this or opposing? Saying none? Okay, you've got it. Perfect.
Before you leave, I think this is the opportunity to talk about your other letter of intent.
Oh,
That
yes.
came up late
Okay, this is
Friday.
a late breaker. Health Equity Alliance has been the entity that has done HIV medical case management through a program called Ryan White. So Ryan White is a federal program. Interestingly, for the state of Maine, some of that federal money actually goes to the regional center at Lubec. I've never been able to fully understand why. And then the regional center at Lubec then contracts with HEAL to do Ryan White HIV medical case management in Aroostook, Washington, Hancock, Piscataquis, Penobscot counties. We learned the end of last week that Lubec Medical Center has now put this out, this HIV medical case management out to see if they're for a letter of interest to potentially go out for a request for proposal process. When I've looked at other models of how HIV medical case management is done throughout the country, local health departments is a place that does that. It's a public health service. So what I am asking for as a late breaker is to have permission to submit a letter of interest to Lubec Medical Center to a letter of interest to kind of explore the opportunity to do HIV medical case management services for Penobscot and Piscataquis. We would not be the right entity to do those other counties. We have relationships in both those counties. We know the services, we know the partners. It would not be appropriate for us in the larger geographical sense. Will Lubec Medical Center cut up the geographical area that way? We don't know. It would just be putting in that letter of intent. And then with that would come the funding to support HIV medical case management. This would be separate from any city.
Council Fournier, motion?
Motion.
He's not on the committee, sorry.
I'm not. Come
Oh,
on.
you got voted
I
on.
don't think so.
Oh, I thought I was.
Take back your motion. Motion on this side of the
I
table.
appreciate it though.
I'll make a motion for a letter of interest.
I'll second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded for a letter of interest to go to Lubec Medical
Thank you.
Center.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. We have. This is already on tonight, right?
Yes, this is a
Oh, the
referral.
referral.
It normally would have gone to GovOps on the 6th, but of course this meeting was pushed. So on tonight's agenda is an ordinance to amend the regular council meeting from 7:30 to 7 PM. And if this is approved at tonight's council meeting, it would take effect in time for the January 27th council meeting.
I need a motion to do that.
I would make a motion to change the time from 7:30 to 7 o'clock
And to move this.
and to move this order to tonight's meeting.
That works.
I'll second that. I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. If there's no opposition. Seeing none. We'll see it in a few minutes.
Yes.
And our last item.
Yes, the last item is a draft council meeting and standing council committee meeting, public comment policy. This is just a draft, and was included in your packets. And I guess City Solicitor Dave Sipchek's here to chat about this.
Hi, so the city's legal department has been working to draft a public comment policy in order to make the rules governing public comment periods at city council meetings clear. And the policy is made in an effort to reduce potential misunderstandings as to the intended scope of the public comment period at city council meetings. And the purpose is to ensure that the public has a fair and adequate opportunity to be heard and to express opinions and concerns related to the business of the city. And the intent of the written policy would allow a public forum for public comment for members of the public to share information and opinions on subjects while ensuring that the time allowed for public input doesn't interfere with the business of the city council and its scheduled agenda. I have to admit that the legal department has been drafting this, but my final review of this did not occur before it got sent to you. I've been busy
Yeah.
in
Which, just to
court.
be fair, this is only at the committee level. There's no order or anything on tonight's meeting.
Right, this is just a draft, and I'm actually gonna suggest a couple of changes to the draft myself before I turn it over to you for your consideration of it. on the draft in, paragraph 1, general public comment. I'm gonna suggest that a sentence be added to that paragraph. This is my suggestion, that the council chair has the discretion to alter the above time limitations. I think that would be a good bit of flexibility to build into the policy. The council chair already has that discretion, but I think it should be written in the written policy. And then under paragraph 2,
Can I
A.
ask a question?
Can we do questions after I just make my suggestions? Under paragraph 2A, that paragraph was not in harmony with the language up in paragraph 1. So I'm gonna suggest that that be changed, that, persons wishing to speak must preface their comments by giving their full name and whether they are a resident of Bangor. Because that's what it says up above. That's how we do it now. And it currently says city of residence, but I think they should be the same. It didn't make sense. And also, Bangor residents or those who own property in Bangor shall have the opportunity to be heard first. That's the way we say it now. It says taxpayers below, but it didn't match what was set up above. So I'm gonna suggest that. There are a few other typographical type changes that I won't go over with you, but it can be made since this is just a draft and it's the first time it's been in front of you. I'm gonna suggest in section 2. There's A, B, C, D, all the capital letters. I'm gonna suggest an H be added. That says obscene, truly threatening and overly repetitive remarks will be interrupted and removed, as will disruption and disorderly behavior that interferes with the orderly conduct of the meeting. That's already in the remarks that the chair makes at the beginning. That should have been in the draft, and I noticed today when I was looking at it that it wasn't in there. And then there's another occasion in section 4, capital A, where I think the language should be changed to match up with what the language was above. The same change that I mentioned before about giving their full name and whether they are a resident of Bangor, and those who are residents or who own property in Bangor shall have the opportunity to be heard first. And I would welcome discussion on this draft and any questions.
Questions?
Yes, I have a question. Your first comment was you wanted the chair to be able to extend the time as opposed to restrict. I would like to think that we do not eliminate.
The language I would suggest, the chair has the discretion to alter the above time limitations. So if there is
But that would not-
somebody who
Yeah,
wants to finish up and
I
it's
understand
gonna
what
extend beyond the, oh, and the way this is set up is, that's changed from the way it is now, is that there's a 15-minute session at the beginning, and then if there's more public comment than that, then the 45 minutes at the end, the chair can reserve 45 minutes at the end. That was sort of a compromise that that people wanted, as opposed to the idea of moving the whole thing to the end. So I didn't mention that, but I do now, it's in there. So your
my
question.
question would be, I assume you're not saying that they can restrict the time and say, instead of giving you 3 minutes, we can give you 1. Well, because you're not definite on what you're saying, it's kind of left out there. They're allowed to change the limits.
Yeah.
Up or down, we don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that would be, my suggestion was to allow the chair the discretion to go either way in that regard.
I don't think you can go either way. I think you've got to allow the public to speak.
You don't.
Well, maybe,
You don't have to allow the public to participate except when there are required public hearings. We've seen the value in allowing public to speak, but long time ago, you asked at a meeting and I didn't respond because we're not inviting discussion at public meetings, but you asked about Robert's Rules of Order.
correct.
And in Robert's Rules of Orders, it says that in meetings of public bodies, in many meetings of public bodies, the public may attend, and that's the case in Maine. The public may attend, but those attendees are not members of the meeting body and ordinarily have no right to participate. So,
But we are allowed to change that. as far as public
Right,
meetings in the
some
city.
public bodies, invite non-members to express their views, which is what we are doing here and have been doing
Right,
forever. But this is done under the control of the presiding officer, subject to any relevant rules adopted by the body. So that's what, this is
That's what
gonna
we're
be,
doing,
a rule
yes.
adopted by the body, and it's also, right in Robert's rules talks about, it's subject under the control of the presiding officer. And it says, often, by rule or practice, time limits are placed on speakers and relevance is closely monitored.
right.
So-
Which we already do.
Well,
Correct.
we want that public comment should be limited to the business of the city. The purpose of that would be so that it's a limited public forum and not a completely open public forum. A limited public forum would allow you to remove obscene, truly threatening and overly repetitive remarks and disruption and disorderly behavior that interferes with the orderly conduct of the meeting. We have an agenda. And the purpose of the city council meeting is to conduct its business according to its agenda. So it's important to, in my opinion, to keep a limited public forum and not a completely open public forum where anybody can talk about anything.
We already have that, though. We limit what they can say. They can't talk about, there's certain specifics they cannot talk about.
Right, we limit it, and
But it
the
doesn't
chair
say-
says that at the beginning of the meeting.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm asking, what specifically are we changing in this draft? The only thing I can see that we're changing is that we're saying that the chair has the ability to say, you may speak for 1 minute as opposed to 3.
If you'd like the draft to be changed so that it only says, that was just my suggested change.
No, I was just
Yeah.
curious if that's what it meant. It means up or down.
That would be, my suggestion was that, but this is your draft, so.
Well, just to give a practical application of the flexibility and why I like it, the chair in the past, when the room's absolutely packed, a bunch of people want to talk about the same thing. The chair has said, we're gonna limit each comment to 2 minutes. And they gave more people an opportunity to speak within that same 60-minute allotment. So I appreciate the chair maintaining that flexibility.
I believe we don't allow them to, only one person to speak on a subject anyway. We're not, usually we don't, if you're talking about XYZ, 12 people, we don't let 12 people talk about it. Because it's a little redundant. I just don't want to see the public eliminated from being able to speak their 3 minutes.
I think there are times that multiple people speak on the same topic.
Correct.
Where it has been monitored or maybe curtailed a bit is if all of a sudden now the last 10 to speak are saying exactly the same thing that the prior 10 did, then we talk about consolidation or something, but we've never said that only one person could speak on a topic. That could be really,
Well, I've been here and heard it said. If someone was talking about a specific item, sometimes it said, we've already heard that 3 times, so we don't need to hear it again. So
really,
that's limiting the public speaking. Unless I'm.
That's the chair
I agree.
saying that, yes.
Yes, I
and the
agree.
room was quite full.
I think
I
that
think-
the point was Councilor Mallor was that usually a handful of folks are allowed to speak and not just one, but when it does reach a certain
Oh, I
point.
agree, and I
Yeah.
don't have a problem with that. It's just that I sometimes think that if you cut them back too much on how the time span, it's hard for some people to get their thought out in 2 minutes as opposed to 3. 3 minutes is not a very long time. I don't want to see it reduced to 1 minute. That's the point.
Yeah. Well, that's why we're here to get feedback and suggestions.
I like the verbiage of alter. I think that's perfectly fine. I don't think we should say it needs to go up or down. I think you can use your reasoning to know on any given night how much time should be allotted for someone to speak. And I think the chair should have that.
Council Forney?
I would agree. I think we all elected the chair. Or most of us did, depending on the circumstances, but I think it should be at the chair's discretion.
I do think if the committee's okay with it, we'll make revisions, and bring this draft back for further.
Yeah.
That would be helpful.
Are there any further revisions that you'd like to talk about? Other than what we've already talked about?
Anything else standing out? It's gonna come back to us. It's gonna make revisions and bring it back, but is there anything else glaring?
Just under, paragraph 1, section B, do we also want to give the same kind of flexibility to the chair of those committees if they do want to allow public comment? I know it does say a particular item specifically, but if something, certain people come and they decide, maybe that should be also up to the chair of that committee's discretion.
It should be up to the chair. I would agree with that.
Does
It should
everybody feel
mirror.
that way?
It should mirror what we're saying.
You're talking about 1B.
You want to be, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so that's kind of the consensus on that one, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We have.
Yeah.
It's just gonna pretty it up, put it back in there.
Okay,
Yeah, sorry, we're just a little pressed for time. I want to give a little break before our 7:30 start is
Yeah.
off, so.
So
Anything
you're gonna
else?
bring this back to us as amended?
yes,
And then we can look again, because
Yes.
B is an interesting one, but I'm not a big fan of giving all the authority to the chair as far as who's allowed to speak and who isn't from the public.
Yeah, this is just kind of first pass, get your initial thoughts. It'll be revised. We'll bring it back to the next GovOps. All right?
all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sounds like a plan. Okay, nothing else on the agenda?
Nope.
We are adjourned. Stay tuned for the city council meeting in 10 minutes.